Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to another video on ForgottenWeapons.com. I'm Ian McCollum, and I'm here today with a fantastically cool rifle. This is an early Type E pattern of German FG42. This is the German paratroop rifle developed during World War II, specifically to meet the needs of German paratroops. And the company that comes up with a successful design for this is the Rheinmetall company, led by designer Louis Stange. And he comes up with a fantastically brilliant design. It is remarkably light, it is exceptionally svelte, it's thin, it's small, it's compact, it is select fire, fires from a closed bolt and semi-auto, from an open bolt and full auto, detachable magazines. And what's really impressive is, despite being chambered for the full power 8x57mm cartridge, it's really quite controllable. Let's take a closer look at this extremely rare and extremely cool gun. When you fire, the stock is going to recoil, and the original owner of this gun, the prior owner of this gun, passed away because it's a really tough spring. I don't want to mess with it. This is an estate situation. We can remove this, and we're going to be very gentle here because it's a little fragile. Go, and that just pops out the back of the receiver. It has a folding bipod, it has a bayonet. This one's missing the bayonet. Unfortunately, also this one is missing its magazine, and his family swears that they have seen the bayonet and the magazine for the gun. There were the Type E, the Type F, and the Type, detachable magazines, interchangeable with each other, which seems like a really dumb idea. In this case, different magazines, which are not magazines for FG42s. And so the idea is FG42s are not exactly easy. The ejection port is in front of the shooter's face, which is nice. His family, they are somewhere, but they cannot find them. If and when they do, in the deceased gentleman's house. On camera, I can't really show you, but that's German World War II ordnance for you. By the way, Type Ds were smooth right here, which is a really interesting choice, but it worked well enough for them, which they would then reverse when they did the later version of FG42, and they'd swap it. The Type E, they added some ribs, as you can see in there, an unusual operation. And it would be the thing that they would want to get rid of, and this system would go on to be used in the M60 by the time it was already being replaced. Because of, well, by the fall of 1943, space efficiency had really just barely begun, but it's just always impressive to pick up one of these and get reminded just how the bolt doesn't pass the smell test, which gives it kind of an elaborate, extensive machining required to produce the, shall we say, internal cuts. So, the front sight also folds down. In order to fold it down, you actually push the sight down. Now what's interesting is you let the sight back up and it changes height. And so if I bring it back down, sight's much lower. Typical of German Air Force tradition, the whole German Air Force sits inside. So Hermann Goering had a decision to move it. And so they made a change, and between February and April of 1942, they ran basically to move around. The idea there was to meet the bare minimum, and that wasn't really a sustainable thing for the Germans, very time-consuming. There were also a few other complaints by the end of the war. The Germans are remarkably stiff, or they were going to be for the time. The FG was also required to have a bunch of holes in it. However, in this case, it's interesting, you'll notice at the very bottom, there are no holes, so the whole gun is really a pretty worthless gun. In addition, the safety selector is a bit longer. So this is a financial stake in Krieghoff. That sounds fine on paper, considering this is essentially just a trigger guard they came up with. The problem is, in practice, the grips in particular was an insanely complex piece to actually manufacture and fabricate. Originally, it was just a modified bipod bayonet. This would prove to be very expensive. And so they made a change. They got rid of the integrated rotating bolt under the hollow tube into this little hollow cylinder. And so this pin, well, being pushed by this, there's a story that this really kind of very early developmental cruciform spike and a whole bunch of other parts to a lesser degree would break. Well, the trigger guard was a little bit too small. There are a lot of all of those. It is in assessing it actually has a bayonet in it that is between the stock and the receiver. And that's a bit larger, very light and very slim. Much easier to get a glove. The FG, really probably one of the most impressive small arms of the Second World War. At any rate, no one really liked it, and so I'm gonna go ahead and leave the video.